This is literally how I beat epilepsy. Welcome back to another episode of the Be Better podcast, guys. My name is Harrison Orr. I am a husband, father, online men's coach. I help burnt out business owning dads go from tired, stressed, and burnt out to energized, loving life, and being the ultimate role model that they can be, purely because of my own journey to become that as well. But through coaching over 500 guys personally, I'm now trying to help other guys step into that role so they can run better businesses, have better families, and just have a better life in general. And so a lot of this has stemmed from my own personal experience. So for me personally, I never really gave a shit about sleep or about stress or about the nervous system, right? It wasn't something that was on my radar or even what I considered it to be a part of health for years, right? I've always considered health to be important. Like, it's always been my number one value. So I was always playing heaps of sport as a kid. Then once I couldn't play sport anymore because I went into chefing once I left school, so weekends are gone, nights are gone, doesn't really leave a whole lot of time for general training and games, stuff like that. So I had to do something. So went into the gym, started doing bodybuilder style training, and figured out how to eat just through trial and error, my own kind of stuff. Like, I don't even remember actively looking stuff up, but I just didn't eat a whole lot of carbs. I think the only carbs I ate were oats in the morning, and I was ridiculously strict with my nutrition. I remember at one point, one of my jobs, an owner literally offered me $50 to eat a Krispy Kreme donut, and I said no, not worth it, won't eat it, won't do it. Partly out of pride, partly out of my values. Also, I'm just I have no desire to do this. And my whole perception of health was literally how lean you were, was literally, do you have a six pack? And that was my marker of health. That was all I cared about. So everything that I did was related to that. And if it didn't matter, if it didn't help that, I didn't really care about it. And so I didn't put any thought into stress or to sleep or mental health even, or anything else. It was literally, how lean do you look? And that was where my confidence would come from, which was very fleeting at the time as well. And so I didn't really care about anything else other than eating barely anything and just training as hard as I could. And so it's no wonder that you have that kind of lifestyle, and then you add in, working in kitchens, and unfortunately that amounted to seizures for me, and then finding out that I've got epilepsy. And so this was not easy. Turning 18, then a month later having my first seizure, then finding out, hey, you've got epilepsy, which now means you have to take this medication for the rest of your life, which means that you cannot have more than 1 to 2 light beers a night, which means that you can't do all these things. You need to get your driver's license, reapproved for that every so often. Every time you have a seizure, you can't drive for 6 months, and you can't do all these things, and it makes it quite hard. And so, being young and stupid, I didn't really change much. It was just just take this pill. Okay, cool. And just took that. And without changing my lifestyle, the seizures kept happening. Basically, every 6 months, I would build up this stress from the lack of sleep, the stress, the anxiety of my own mental health, plus with working in kitchens and everything else, and I'd have a seizure, and then it would die back down. But luckily, seizures won't actually kill you, which is lucky, because they're pretty scary. If you've ever seen someone have a seizure, it's not a fun sight, especially if you don't know what it is. It's pretty damn scary seeing someone foam at the mouth and convulse on the floor. You can see them and nobody is home. It's pretty scary. And so I've been blessed that whilst I've had quite a few seizures, I've never actually had one that's done any massive damage, though quite a few times I almost could have died. But I take that as a sign that I'm meant to be here, otherwise I would have been collected long ago. I almost fell into a deep fryer when I had a seizure in one of the kitchens. I had a seizure an hour before I was meant to be strapped to some guy hang gliding over Queenstown in New Zealand. I had a seizure walking across the road on the phone to my mum at 5 a.m. down in Cooma, Australia, down in New South Wales. I was driving down to the snow, stopped to go to the toilet, call my mum, say I was halfway, that I was almost there, and then literally as I'm on the phone to her, walking across the road back to my car, had a fit, and she's freaking out. Luckily, some lady saw me and knew what a seizure was, and was able to talk to my mum, call an ambulance and stuff like that. And then, so 5 minutes either side of that event, and I would have been going 110 k's down a deserted, dark country road, and probably wouldn't have ended well. And then I've also had a seizure actually driving a car and ended up running into somebody's front brick fence. And so plenty of times that if I wasn't meant to be here, I would have been gone by now. So I take that as a sign that I'm meant to be here. I'm meant to be helping other people so that they can be better as well. So thank you for being on this journey with me. And so I didn't do anything about this stress for years. And I didn't really consider, I just accepted it as, oh cool, this is my life now. It wasn't until I saw someone who eventually became a coach and a mentor and even an employer. I eventually worked for him, for James Kent, who introduced me to the nervous system. So the importance of sleep and of stress and how it affects literally everything, and how, this was the selling point for me at the time, given my ego and what I valued, was how it affects your body in terms of how it affects your ability to lose fat, gain muscle, and perform. And obviously it also affects a hell of a lot of other things other than that, but that was the selling point for me at that time in life, because that's all I cared about. And so since looking after the nervous system, since prioritizing sleep and getting that sorted, since looking after and having management techniques to become stress resilient, but also to manage my stress, know when I need to relax and take a step back, and know when I'm primed and equipped to push harder, has been massively important. So it's now been 6.5 years since I had my last seizure. I no longer take medication for epilepsy, and I am totally fine. We've had a son in that time, so a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of stress, a lot of frustrations, as any parent would know. And I have been able to manage my state and my stress and myself to a point where seizures are not really on the table for me anymore because of the way that I live now. And so, as a bit of a disclaimer, if you do have epilepsy, don't just listen to me and stop taking your meds. If you want to alter that, go and talk to your neurologist or a doctor or somebody else who's qualified to help you with that kind of thing. But if you do want to have a conversation about that, then I'm more than happy. Happy to talk, because I know it can be a shit place, feeling so out of control with your own, like you don't have control of your own body or your own mind, because I know that's not a fun place to be. So if there's anything I can do to help, then just reach out, and I'd love to help you out. And I'll also drop a free resource for sleep in the show notes as well, so you can check that out if sleep is something that you struggle with, because I know that can make a huge difference in managing your stress, but also the epilepsy side of things as well, because I don't know, everybody's different, but for me, my 3 triggers were alcohol, sleep deprivation, and stress. Different types of stress will affect people differently. Unfortunately, seizures is the one that I got. And so that leads me into my first point of how I manage the epilepsy, how you can improve your stress management and hopefully not have seizures if you're in that basket, or just not get burnt out and not get so susceptible to stress. And so number 1 is sleep. It's not sexy, it's not that fun, unless you're having crazy wild dreams, but optimizing your sleep. So being consistent with your sleep times and your wake times, being consistent with your routine, and getting consistent, good quality sleep will make the world of difference. You will be able to lose fat faster, gain muscle faster, you'll be able to have better thinking capacity, better memory, better emotional control, better stress resilience, better hormonal production, better digestion, better skin, reduce the effects of aging, better recovery. Literally everything that you can think of will be improved if you get good quality sleep. I promise you that. I don't make many promises, many guarantees, but I can guarantee you that, because if sleep is not literally the most important thing that we are meant to do on this earth to survive and to thrive, then it is a royal fuck up from Mother Nature, given that we literally spend 1/3 of our life doing it. Right? We are vulnerable, we are susceptible to attacks and to literally everything, because we're just paralyzed laying there for 8 hours a day. Not a great survival strategy if it doesn't carry a damn good benefit and effect from it, right? So look after your sleep. If you're not sure on sleep, I'll do a podcast later on eventually if people show interest in that. But check out the show notes below this. I'll drop the link to the Deep Sleep Blueprint, which you can check out, which has some suggestions on ways that you can optimize your sleep. So things to reduce, things to look at, and then also a bit of a checklist for a sleep routine that you can action as well. So I hope that helps if you go check that out. Second of all, and this was a big one for me in terms of managing my stress and my seizures, is getting data, right? Getting physical data to say, this is how you slept, this is how your nervous system is primed, recovered, and consequently, this is what you should do about it. Because I was very pig-headed. I used to train at 6 a.m., no ifs, no buts, no maybes, every single day of the week, every single day of the year. Don't be a bitch. I would get up, double scoop my pre-workout, watch some motivational shit, go and train, flog my body for 2 hours, and then go to work for 10, 12 hours a day, walking around on my feet the entire time. Sometimes I'd even do double sessions. I'd get up, I'd go for a run instead, and then work, and then in the 2 hour break that we had, go to the gym, come back, and then do that. Ridiculous. But my highest value was having a six-pack. That's what I thought health was like how lean you were. So, and it got me, it was getting me the result. Like, I was pretty freaking lean. Looking back, I was scrawny and looking malnourished a little bit. But like, to my mind, I was lean and that's what I wanted to get. So I was getting the result that I wanted to, which ended up being the problem because everything that I was doing, I was getting the result that I wanted. So it just reaffirmed that, oh, what you're doing is getting the result. So it must be right. It must be working. So keep doing that thing. Not the greatest long-term strategy. And so for me, taking days off was a bitch mentality. You're soft. Taking, I guess, like not going hard as you can, not going to failure was soft. And so I pride myself on that work ethic and on that mentality. But now we have more, or I have more maturity. We also have a little bit more data to be able to say like, no, you actually need to rest for performance, for your actual health. So I needed data to be able to tell me that. And so when it comes to the stress side of things and the seizures, we want to look at our sleep quality, but then more importantly, even from there, is our heart rate variability. So our heart rate variability is basically a direct marker of the health of our nervous system. And your heart rate variability is the timestamp between your heartbeats. So, for example, even if your heart rate is 60 beats per minute, for ease of illustration, your heart won't beat exactly every second, right? It might beat after 0.8 seconds, then after 1.2, then after 0.9, then after 1.1, and then like variance. So heart rate variability, hence the name. And so the faster your heart rate, the lower that heart rate variability number is going to be, which means the more time you have spent in a stressed out state and the less recovered you are, the more stressed you're going to be. The higher your heart rate variability means the slower your heart rate, which means you're more likely to be recovered, to be calm, to be primed for a good day. And so that's where we want to be. We want to have our heart rate variability as high as possible. And so we want to only be spending like 5-10% of our day, if that, in that fight or flight response. You know, when we need it, or when we're training, things like that. But as often as possible, we want to be able to drop back down into that lower heart rate, rest and digest state as fast as possible. So we don't want to be lingering in that stressed out state, which is where overwhelm, anxiety, stress, like all those like mental situations that keep us there, elevate our heart rate, reduce our heart rate variability and keep us stressed out. So we want to reduce as many of those as possible, which is where the stress management tools and the resilience, all that kind of stuff comes into it. And so being able to have that data for me to say, hey, your heart rate variability is low. A day later, it's low again. Hey, it's low again. It's like, it's on that trend going down. I know where that ends, and it's not fun. And so that's an alarm to say, hey, you need to prioritize rest. Take a day off the gym, Go spend time in the sun, go ground yourself, go to a sauna, make sure you prioritize good quality sleep. If there's anything stressing you out, either have that conversation, either journal about it or meditate, or like do whatever you need to do to deal with that situation, to take some stuff off your plate and then focus on giving back. And so you can look at those trends, whether you're headed for burnout or whether you're headed for sickness or whether you're headed for a seizure in my case, whatever it might be, and then make that decision, as opposed to getting all the way through to being so burnt out, getting sick or having that seizure that you're like, oh shit, what did I do? What happened? And then you have to kind of rebuild from there, because that's not fun. And so having that data to be able to actively say, or sorry, accurately I should say, dude, you need to rest, you need to chill out, dial it back, has been so instrumental in me learning how my body operates and learning how to manipulate it so that I can perform at my best for as long as possible. Not just today, not just tomorrow, but for weeks, months, years, decades on end, so that I can grow the business to the point I want to, so that I can be present as a father for my son and also for my wife, and just be doing what I'm doing, what I love, for as long as possible without being this shooting star of like this thing that comes and goes in just as much time and just burns itself out. And so number 2 is have data to track your heart rate variability and ideally your sleep as well. Third is stress management protocols. Stress management protocols will look different for everybody, but find what works for you. Some people it's journaling or meditation, other people it's a walk in nature, other people it's reading, or I guess just things like Sudoku, or like, you know, those little games, things like that. Maybe it's a bath, maybe it's talking with a loved one, or whatever it might be, but have something for you that allows you to reflect, review, take a step back, so that you can look after yourself and perform better the next day, and just be present in what you're doing and not burn yourself out. Because I used to think that you needed to go, like everything was go, like you needed to, like the more work you could get done, then the better, the more progress that you would make. And for sure, there's some areas in life where it's a reps game. It's like you need to get done as much volume as you possibly can, and that's how you'll progress, how you'll get better. But there becomes a point of diminishing returns. It's the same as if you sat down to work for 8 hours straight. You know, we use 8 hours because it's the standard work day. For 8 hours straight, I would bet just about every dollar I have that you cannot sit there for 8 hours straight and your last hour will be as productive as your first hour. I don't buy it. All right, I do not buy it. If you sat there and did not move, you would not be as productive. Mentally, you would be slow, you would get distracted, you would procrastinate, like all this kind of stuff would happen. It's just part of our brain. And so if you listen to one of the last episodes about the book suggestion I made from Stephen Kotler on the Art of Impossible, he talks about how to get into a flow state. And one of the things that he found when it comes to productivity and focus is because of that diminishing return in terms of time, attention, and productivity, most people are better off to take a break. So you take that break depending on your attention span after maybe 40 minutes or 50 minutes. And then short break, 3 to 5 minutes, enough to get up, go to the bathroom if you need to, grab some water, get some sunshine, do a couple of burpees, and then come back. And those shorter blocks, whilst over the whole entire day you're working maybe 30 minutes less, or sitting at your desk I should say, 30 minutes less, your overall productivity is much higher because you're able to break it up into shorter blocks where you can be so much more focused as well. And so part of that is a bit of reprieve for your brain, right? Because even if you're doing, say, your weights in the gym, if you're going to do 5 sets of 10, so 50 reps in total, why not just do 1 set of 50? Right? Well, you wouldn't, because you'd have to lift a much lighter weight, which, unless you're training for some sort of endurance event that is not going to benefit you, if you're training for strength and for weight and for muscle gain, you want to lift heavier weights. So if you break that 50 reps into 5 sets of 10, or even 10 sets of 5, or whatever it is, then you're going to be able to lift a lot heavier. You'll need to take breaks in between, but you'll be able to lift a lot heavier. The overall volume for the entire session will be much higher. Your overall muscle recruitment will be much higher, and consequently the adaptation and the growth from that will be consequently so much higher. And so when we view our work and our mind in the same way, it becomes a lot easier to conceptualize. Like, okay, I need to take breaks so that I can give it a rest. It can like compartmentalize and conceptualize all the information that it already has, piece together some of those dots, and then we come back and then we go again. And so taking those breaks can be super helpful. So to loop this back, those stress management protocols, those productivity protocols. For me personally, I love sitting in the sun. I love my cacao, my brain juice. Subbing out excessive amounts of caffeine for that has been a game changer for me. I used to drink 10 shots of coffee a day and was riddled with anxiety and stress and horrible sleep and all over the place. Now I have 1-2 coffees absolute max, and then have my cacao and brain juice, and it's been an absolute godsend because it's 1 o'clock now. I can even have these at 3 o'clock and no issues with my sleep, and it tastes amazing. So self-plug there, but if you're someone that struggles with caffeine, highly recommend getting off some of that for that productivity as well as like your sleep. And so when it comes, tying this back to that epilepsy and the stress management, look after your sleep. Number 1, check out the resource in the show notes. 2, track your numbers, your heart rate variability and your sleep stats. It will be one of the best things that you ever invest in, even if you only do it for a short amount of time. Even if you only do it, say, cool, for the next 6 or 12 months, I'm going to be I'm going to track my numbers. I'm going to optimize my sleep. I'm just going to see where I'm at and then go hard on improving this. Once you get to that, like especially with sleep, once you get to that level, cool, I know my routine for amazing sleep and I know this, then you don't really have to fuck around with it. Just keep doing that thing, cool? And then with that data, you can then, if you're in my situation, make calls based on, you know, your performance and your day so that you don't have a seizure or you don't burn out in that case, right? And then number 3, have those stress management protocols in place as well, and be flexible in how you approach your day so that you don't have to be so go. Because when we're stressed out, we don't respond the best. We often react with anger, with emotion, with frustration, with things that in ways that don't really serve us. And so having those in place can be an absolute game changer when it comes to managing your stress and getting the most out of yourself as well. Not just today, but for the entire week, for the entire month, for the entire year, and continuing on from that. So being able to take that over that 30,000 foot look, you know, from the plains up type thing. And so they're the 3 key tips that I got for you today. I'm not going to drag this on any longer, so I hope that's been helpful for you. If you want, check out that sleep resource down in the show notes. And if you want help with this, if you want to have a chat on any of the things that I've kind of spoken on, reach out to me on Instagram. In the show notes will also be my tag for that. Reach out and let's have a chat. Otherwise, like always, take action on something that you've learned from this. If you are stressed out, take action on one of those stress management protocols. If you already feel like your health is pretty good, look into one of those biomarking tracking devices. If your sleep is trash, download the deep sleep blueprint in the show notes and go and action some of that stuff as well. And I'd love to hear what you action and what you notice from those changes and how it helps you. So I hope this has been helpful. Like always, don't be sorry, be better. I'll see you guys in the next episode.